I can confidently say that womanism was one of the best things that could have happened to men who wanted to live their life as a bachelor. You guys may look at all the evils that womanism did to relationships between men and women and become upset that women aren't respecting men and going back to being traditional. But all it did, in my opinion, was reveal what women really wanted deep down, and what you guys saw was what they wanted to do all along but never had the power to do. The saying, "the higher the monkey climbs, the more it gets exposed," sums up modern women. The higher up the economic ladder that they climbed and the more power the movement was able to attain, the more their true intentions got revealed to men, and you got to find out that they wanted to dominate men and be self-reliant. They never wanted to be under the direct control of a man or have to depend on him. That was what it all boiled down to, because, for the first time in human history, women had the same rights and opportunities as men, so can you blame them for wanting to hold on to the little power they got? It's similar to men that were victims of slavery back in the day. These men were oppressed and had to be under the direct control of their massa and depend on him to provide and take care of them. So when the chance came to get their freedoms, of course, they rebelled and fought tooth and nail to get it. Womanism is similar in the sense that they were fighting to be independent of men. However, the circumstances were vastly different from the men and women that were literally on the plantation. See, most women weren't oppressed by the man that selected them or they picked. Sure, a good percentage of them were, but it was never the majority, and it is evident by the fact that women were a lot happier back in the day than they were now. Even though they had to be under the control of a man and depend on him to survive, they were happily playing their role, which means that women want to be led, submit, and play a feminine role. We all have roles that come naturally to us. A man's role is to lead, and a woman's role is to follow. That is how it has always been, which worked for hundreds of thousands of years until women decided they wanted their freedom. Freedom comes at a cost, and women had no problem sacrificing their relationships with men to get what they wanted, which was to be independent of men and not have to depend on us anymore. So I'm bringing this up to make you guys understand where we are coming from in the simplest way possible, so you can have an idea of where we are going. Now, with what has happened due to womanism and what it did to relationships between men and women, there's no going back to what was, so let me just lay it out on the table. Women aren't returning to their traditional roles unless societies worldwide crumble or we have a catastrophic event like a world war or famine that forces women to rely on men. As long as they have the government to back them up and they can have a sense of independence, it's never going to be like what it was back in the day, and that's just something men have to understand. And let's say they were to stop the BS and start being traditional again. Do you want to be with modern women after all the wreckage they've done to themselves in society? This is a question that I want you guys to think about. If modern women were to fall in line and return to their roles completely, would you really want to be with a modern woman after all that has happened with the open digital sexual revolution and the hatred they have towards men? I'm going to be real with you guys. I doubt I would take back a modern woman because I would have to take them with all the bodies they accumulated. All the trauma and mental health issues, the early termination of kids, the underlying hatred they have for men, their massive amount of student loans, debts, and every other BS they did to themselves. So I personally would not take back a modern woman even if she had a hymen intact, because I know that as soon as things get better, they can always stab me in the back and revert right back to womanism when it favors them. That is why you must have a long memory when dealing with modern women, because when the time gets tough, like what we're seeing right now, they will tell you what you want to hear and temporarily play their role so they can get what they want out of you. Then when things get better, they can revert right back to womanism and discard you like trash. We see this today on a micro level, with women talking about the soft girl era and returning to femininity. If the economy was booming and womanism was stronger than ever, then you never hear them mention anything like this. But when the moment of reckoning arrives, now they want to switch up and go back to femininity in order to survive. So understand that women are who they are, and they don't want to be controlled and led by a man anymore. Some still do, but most of us won't get one of those women. The women that are acting like they are good women are chameleons at best, and I would never trust any of these women, especially if they were womanists. They believe in some parts of womanism, or they are friends with other women who are womanists. Another thing that we have to look at is how men are disincentivized to return to relationships when they can purchase the roles that women play in traditional relationships. We can all agree that women will temporarily swing from traditional relationships to being a womanist when it favors them or they need to survive. We can all agree on that because it's being played out right now in his economy. But as I asked in the previous point if you guys would take back modern women if they decide to become traditional, now I want to know if you want one woman to play that role. See, most women don't want to be under the control of a man. We all know this by now. Likewise, most women don't want to play their roles, even in a traditional relationship. We can clearly see this with them nagging and complaining about what they have to do in the house. Most of them don't want to wash, cook, and clean nowadays, and most aren't equipped to be a mother and make a house a home anymore. All of what I'm saying is right in our faces. Just go on TikTok alone and you'll see it for yourselves. With that in mind, wouldn't it be better to hire a service provider who would be happier to do the job your girl or wife should be doing, instead of having someone nag and complain about doing what they have to do when they're single? That can be eliminated by just hiring someone to do the job by incentivizing them with money. So I want you guys to think long and hard if it wouldn't be better to hire someone to do the roles that a traditional woman in the past would do. You can hire someone to do just about anything your woman would have to do pre-womanism. You can have someone clean your house and do the laundry for you, which would be cheaper than housing a wife. You can get someone to meal prep for you, which would still be cheaper than housing a girlfriend. If you want someone to raise your kids, a nanny can do it if you have the money to pay for that. If you want a helpmate or an assistant to help you with minuscule tasks or assist you with your work, someone can be hired to do the job. And let us say you need someone to relieve you of your sexual tension. A transactional relationship with a woman can be formed, and you'll get what you want more than if you were married or had a girlfriend, and for way cheaper depending on the woman and the arrangement. So the point I'm trying to show you is that women's role in a traditional household can be bought and transacted. So for a lot of men, having a traditional relationship isn't needed anymore once you have the money to pay for those services. This is why I opened this video by saying womanism freed men, because we no longer need XXs to get what we want. And even with how much progress they've made, most women still need men to patch their way through life and support themselves, which defeats the purpose of womanism in the first place. They were, in theory, supposed to be independent of relying on men, but they still couldn't support themselves fully, even with the government bailing them out. That has been exposed with the pandemic destroying jobs. And women revert to doing the oldest profession to survive and pay their bills, so always remember that women need you way more than you need them. One last thing to touch on as it relates to dating after the influence of womanism is that most men realized that they were getting a raw deal and have decided to opt out of dating entirely. Women were told that sleeping around with multiple men was empowering, so they did just that. And because they could access top-tier guys, their standards rose so high that average men that were supposed to be their husbands got phased out and were left behind holding their Johnson and trying to figure out what to do. Men had to watch women ride the rooster rotation, put them on the back burner to live their best lives, and only when age 30 hit and they knew they could not continue with how exhausted they were or the attention dried up, then they wanted the guys they ignored for multiple years. Some men fell for the okie doke and took an L later on, but most men started to wake up little by little with the help of the RP message and decided to leave dating behind. Men saw that they were getting Chad's sloppy seconds, and these women had ridiculous standards and body counts. It ended up working against women by pushing men further and further away from dating until we are where we are today. They raised the bar so high and treated the men they didn't want so badly that now men aren't committing. Men aren't wasting their money paying for dates when Chad got her to part legs for free. And men know that if they were to commit, she would divorce him and drag him through the mud. And worst of all, since women don't think they should give men anything, most men know that they're not going to get a good deal, so men aren't going back to dating. This is why modern women are the most single they've been in the history of the world. And they are the most unhappy of all women that have ever lived, simply because they chose womanism over men and family. This is why so many women are single and dying alone, and they only have themselves to blame at the end of the day. As it stands, men aren't going to date traditionally anymore, since women are now selling peace leave and they know they're getting a bad deal. Not to mention, men have the option to pay for what women have to offer without committing, so relationships and dating that we know are dead. We are going in the direction of transactional relationships and open poly relationships. All of this results from womanism and women choosing to be independent rather than under a man's leadership and control. So womanism liberated men from having to marry to get what a wife would have to offer, but it also destroyed traditional dating and relationships in the process. So while this is a W for men, it is an L for women, because at the end of the day, all of them will have to learn that they can't have it all, and the only reality that is left for them is to die alone when it's too late. If you guys want solutions for your life and not to try and fix womanism, then linked in the description is the free Agent Lifestyle book that will help you. Now is not the time to try and save women or society. Just focus on yourself and prioritize your life. Women chose womanism, so let them live with the consequences of their decisions. If you are new to the channel and want to support us, then just tap the subscribe button, tap the bell, then tap all, and that's it. Another way to support this message is to donate to our Cash App and PayPal in the description box below. But the best way to support us, hands down, is to watch our Season 9 videos on the screen right now for free, so you can be 2 steps ahead of modern women.